Hi. There we go. I need to get new batteries for the camera. All right. That's good. Okay, this is good. A little more. This way. No, you need to be propped. We'll prop you up. You're always somewhere in the bedroom. All right, and hi everybody. Okay, welcome back to another Whiteboard book review. I don't like this one. Cut. I don't like that. Hi everybody. Okay, welcome back to another Whiteboard book review. I don't like this one. Cut. I don't like that. What is going to be my little intro? I didn't think of that. I'll film a little intro later. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Whiteboard book reviews. So, today we are doing the first half of Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. As you can see, this is the cover here. I love this author, by the way. I've read like 2 others of his books, and he's very, very good at writing suspenseful, creepy stuff. So I'm going to read you what it's about, and then we'll just hop right into it. Beware the one who got away. Father Silence once terrorized the rural town of Twisted Tree, disguising himself as a priest to prey on the most vulnerable members of society. When the police finally found his house of horrors, they uncovered 19 bodies and 1 survivor. A boy now locked away in a hospital for the criminally insane. Nearly 2 decades later, Father Silence is finally put to death, but by the next morning, the detective who made the original arrest is found dead. A new serial killer is taking credit for the murder and calling himself the Outcast. The detective's daughter, Tess Claibourne, is a detective herself, haunted by childhood trauma and horrified by the death of her father and the resurgence of Father Silence's legacy. When Tess's daughter is kidnapped by the Outcast, Tess is forced to face her worst fears and long-buried memories. With no leads to follow, she travels back to Twisted Tree to visit the boy who survived and see what secrets might be buried in the tangled web of his broken mind. That's what's going on in this. And my God, we've got a lot to talk about. As always, I've taken my notes and just... I don't know how he does it, but I was hooked. I decided to only do the first half, well, plus trying to binge the whole book in a week would have driven me insane. Plus, I was really sick for a lot. You can probably still hear it too. I'm going to be sniffling a lot, so right away, apologies. I'm going to be sniffling a lot. But I was really sick, so there was a brief period. I didn't read for like 3 or 4 days because all I could do was just lie in bed and, you know, proclaim that I'm dying. But that's neither here nor there. Alright, so our main character, her name is Tess. And she is a detective. And so the book starts off with like a journal, like a newspaper entry about 2 bodies being found in the town of Twisted Tree, 2 teenage boys. And it says that they were like bludgeoned to death. And then I believe from there, because this book, it jumps to a lot of journal entries. So yeah, it goes from, well, the prologue is, okay, so there's a really weird prologue called Before. And it's this little boy who's coloring up in his room, and he's frantically coloring just black eyes. Very creepy, and he's frantically coloring them as his mom is shouting at him and coming up the stairs towards him. And he's about to be punished for something that he doesn't know what he did, but apparently he did something, because his mom is shouting, "I'm gonna put you in the ark, you've been a baddie boy," and he's like frantically drawing these eyes that he puts up on a wall that's like posted with a bunch of other creepily drawn black eyes, and he signs this one. Underneath this one, it's signed, they're all signed with different names. That's the weird part. And so he signs the name of who drew this one. We don't get the name right now, but he signs it, puts it on the, Dean. So his name is Noah. Well, we've determined from his mom yelling at him, his name is Noah. But he draws these frantic black eyes and signs it in as Dean and puts it up on his wall where bunch of black eyes are drawn with different names. So right away you're like, that's weird. And then it jumps to, there's a little snippet of the Missing Teens news article, and then it jumps to our main character, Tess. She's being dropped off by her detective partner, Danny, at her house because her car wouldn't start, so he brought her home. It's in the middle of a storm, or it's about to storm, and he's bringing her home after a shift at work. It's late at night, and she can see that the lights are still on in her house. She has her neighbors babysitting her little daughter, Julie, which we'll put down here. So the neighbors are babysitting Julie because Tess is going through a separation right now. She kicked her husband out because she caught him cheating. And this is creating kind of a rift between her and Danny too, because her and Justin and Danny and his wife were like best buds. The four of them, they did everything together and they've been friends forever. So Justin cheating has caused this weird rift because on one hand, Danny wants to be there for his partner because he understands this sucks, this hurts. And on the other hand, Danny wants to be there for his friend, but he's like, dude, you cheated. This sucks. What were you thinking? And so Tess briefly mentions to Danny before getting out the car that she's meeting with a divorce lawyer soon. And Danny's like, don't you think that's a bit much? And she's like, be so for real. So their relationship, while not bad, is kind of strained because of the situation. Like Danny agrees, yeah, okay, kick him out of the house for now. You guys need some space. But he doesn't think divorce should be the next step. And she's like, it's my life. It's now or never. But, so he's like, whatever. So Tess goes inside, and inside, as it's starting to storm now, Tess, her daughter Julie is playing, chess with the neighbor, an old man and his wife. They decided they were watching for her, and when they leave, Tess is like, hey, it's time for bed, and Julie's like, just one more game, play with me, and Tess is like, you have school in the morning, and little Julie, I think she's 9, thinks what it is, just throws a whole fit, and is like, Dad would have stayed up and played with me, and like tosses the shit across the floor and stuff. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not a parent, so I can't say what I would have actually done, but I don't think I would have just allowed her to storm off the way that Tess does. Like, Tess understands that Julie is going through, like, Julie is confused, like, why isn't her dad here? And, like, apparently for Julie, the dad was the more favorite parent because he was around more. Tess put herself into her work a lot more than she did her family. So to Julie, Tess is the bad guy for kicking out her dad, and she doesn't know why her dad got kicked out. She's confused and angry about it. But I still would have been like, if you don't contact me, motherfucker, please back up. But she decides to let it slide. She's like, I don't even want to fight about this. So she decides to pick it up. She's like, I'm just going to pick these up. I don't even want to fight about this. I'm tired. She's tired. It's storming out. And Tess has a thing about storms. They terrify her. So she starts drinking whiskey to calm her nerves. And she is starting to go to bed, but the storm gets really bad. And her daughter comes into her room. And it's something like, the storm, can we go in the closet? And they have this like walk-in closet in their room where when it's storming out really bad, they'll either sit in there and color, or they'll like drip wax onto paper to like make images and stuff. And it kind of helps like with the anxiety of storms, which I thought was cute. I was like, oh, that's cute. Wish I had a walk-in closet to do stuff. I would just take naps in a walk-in closet. Like, if I had a walk-in closet, I would take so many naps. So many naps. Oh, a little walk-in reading area. I'm getting distracted with the fantasies. But, so they're in the closet and Julie just kind of goes, hey, when's Dad coming back? And Tess can't answer that. She's like, I don't know, sweetie. And Julie just drops it and she's like, oh, praise. She doesn't want to get into a fight with Julie in the middle of this storm that they're both stressed out and scared of. So after the storm goes away, they both go to sleep in the closet, and she takes Julie to put her in her own room, and Julie's like, nope, your bed. And Tess is like, small win, she wants to sleep with me. And it's like, take what you can get, girl, she's mad at you. So that happens, and it kind of jumps around. So while Julie is sleeping, Tess calls her dad. Now, I didn't write down Tess's dad's name, so we're just gonna Tess, dad, old detective. Boop. And then we'll put Tess, mom. Don't really need to keep their names. I'm just going to throw that out there. So, during this storm, there is an execution happening. The execution of Father Silence. So, Father Silence was arrested 20 years ago, I think is what it said it was, by Tess's dad and his old partner. Just partner. Look, I didn't put his name down because I think it was John. John? You'll understand. You'll get it, okay? But, so Tess's dad and partner dude John arrested Father Silence like 20 years ago. Father Silence, his real name was Pritchard. Last name was Pritchard. They've been calling him Father Silence the whole book. You get his like actual name like 2 or 3 times, and then it's just Father Silence, except for the one character that's like, if you fucking say his name one more goddamn time. So they're like, okay, Pritchard. His name is Pritchard. But, so Father Silence, they arrest him after they discovered, like I read in the profile, 19 bodies, of children. They were underage. They were like 17 and younger, I believe is what it was. They found 19 bodies and 1 survivor, Noah Nichols, and he was arrested for that and put on sentenced to death for it. So 20 years later, he's finally being put to death. So normally they do lethal injection, but the mayor was like, nah. Freshen up old Sparky. He's getting put down the other way because he kept these boys in his house. He burned like inverted crosses under their arms, and like they went through a bunch of unspeakable shit before they all died from like either from the torture or like dehydration, starvation, things like that. And so it's 20 years now. Her dad and her mom have gone to like their cabin like away from the cities and stuff to get away from like news reporters or people looking for them to be like, how do you guys feel about Father Silence finally being, you know, fried? How do you feel about Father Silence finally being executed for the crimes he committed 20 years ago? Do you still think about? And stuff like that. So, go on, Penny. Don't knock my camera over. So they wanted to get away from that because they did not want to hear none of that. They're like, it was 20 years ago. I don't want to think about it. Don't leave us alone. So they go out to their cabin to like get away from that. So Father Silence is being executed. He's being walked down death row or whatever it's called. I don't know. I've never been there. He's walking down it. He gets strapped in and they're like, any last words that you want to say? And nobody but the executioner and the prisoner guard in there hear him, but he says, beware the one who got away. And then he, gets fried. And after it happens, after it's announced on the news that it happens, Tess calls her dad to just be like, hey, how you holding up? How you doing? You good? They're both drunk. So they're both drunk, checking in on each other. And Tess is remembering that when she was a teen, because she was the age of all the kids that got kidnapped, she was that age. And then suddenly, just randomly afterwards, they moved from Twisted Tree. And she has a lot of gaps in her memory from living in Twisted Tree. She remembers basically nothing from living in Twisted Tree. She just remembers something happened. Something happened. Father Silence was arrested. They moved out of town. And she, no matter how hard she tries, cannot remember what it was that happened. And her dad, while they're randomly talking, he goes, it was for the best. And she goes, what? She goes, moving you out of there. It was for the best. And she's like, care to elaborate? But he's so drunk and she's so drunk. Get down, Penny. Down. But they're both so drunk that it's like, we'll talk about this tomorrow. Hey, how about Julie and I come visit and we can like just get some pizza and just hang out. And her dad's like, yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, I'd love that idea. So we'll pencil this and we'll talk tomorrow. Because he had also brought up, apparently my sources say Father Silence finally broke his vow of silence. So Father Silence is only called Father Silence because for the 20-something years that he was in prison, he never not once said a word. When he was arrested, did not say a word. When they questioned him, did not say a word. The whole time he was in prison, did not say a word. Never not once spoke. And then when they said, do you have anything to say before you die? He said, beware the one that got away. And so her dad was like, oh, I was told he said something before he died. And then before he tells them that, they decide, how about we just come out and visit you tomorrow? We'll see. We'll talk then. And so they both go to bed. So now we are at the point where there is a weird little scene. There's two random scenes. So Father Silence, his house, someone bought it. This woman, I don't know why she bought it. I'm going to point that out right now. This woman who, her house got egged. It got egged and it got like TP'd because, because Father Silence was executed. And they're just trashing the house but she lives there. This woman lives there. And, she kind of was just like warning him. Like she was trying to warn people that something was going to happen. Did I imagine that I wrote down her name? I take notes on everything. And from what I can see, I thought I wrote my last bit. But I imagined writing down my last little bit of what I needed to for this review. That's amazing. But, no, so there's this woman living in his house. And she's like, it's my house now. I don't understand why stop trashing my house. It's my house. I get he lived here. I get it. But it's my house now. So her house gets egged and, toilet paper all over the trees and stuff, that kind of shit. Twisted Tree is the name of the town, and it's a small-ass town, so that kind of shit still happens, I guess. But so she was like, in her head, she's going, this shit's just gonna get worse now that he's dead. Like, in her head, she's thinking this, and I'm like, random character living in Father Silence's house. Why do you think that? Why do you think that? And then there's a small little snippet about a nun who was thinking about Father Silence, Jeff. His name was Jeff Pritchard. She's thinking about him and how when he lived with her as a little boy, he lived in the monastery that they were in, and she's thinking that how she's already forgiven him for his past, like what he's done and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are we going to hear from you again too? Like, we read a brief interview with her, and that's about it at this point. But I'm like, this dude's been everywhere. What the fuck? So you're getting a really good sense of, like, bad shit happened. That's pretty much, bad shit happened. Tess can't remember, and at this point, I'm like, bitch, you did something. Like, you can already right away tell that she did something. And that's why her memory is like, we're going to put that in a box and lock it and put it in our pocket. Like, she did something, and her memory was like, we're going to make you not remember just because, what you did was bad. Like, that's I'm halfway through the book. I read the first 30 chapters, and I've got like 33 left, I think. And that's my professional opinion. I'm not a doctor or anything. But, her husband is. Her husband, oh, let me just put him up. Cheating hubby, Justin. He can be little, he's cheating. But, he's a psychiatrist. And the whole time they're married, is like, you have holes in your memory because of something that happened. If we can just fill in those holes, we can figure out what happened. And she's like, no, leave it alone. If I remember, I remember. Like, and he just doesn't like that there's stuff about her past that he doesn't know. But, like, he never, and this is just, like, stuff they mentioned, like, in the past, like, memories and stuff. Like, this isn't stuff we're actually reading about. But he doesn't like that there's stuff about her that he doesn't know, that she doesn't want to remember to tell him. And it's just like, if she doesn't want to remember, she doesn't want to remember. Penny, don't knock my camera. So we get a little snippet where it's like an interview from a veterinarian from when Father Silence, aka Jeff Pritchard, was growing up as a kid, about how Jeff brought in this injured animal one day, and he's like super sad. He was like, please, can you help him? And the animal is super injured. You know what? What am I doing? Father Silence, aka Jeff P. So he brings on this injured animal to the veterinarian, and he's like, can you help him? Look, he's injured, he's hurt. And the vet's like, yo, this animal's dying, we have to put him down. And Jeff is like super sad, and he's like, okay, but can I stay with them? Like, really putting on the waterworks and stuff. And the veterinarian is telling this to one of the detectives, so it's one of these two, telling him this story. And then the veterinarian's like, yeah. And then he just kept coming in with injured animals. He would find them on the side of the road, is what he said. And, yeah, he ended up having his own little pet cemetery. And the detective was like, I beg your finest pardon? And I was like, yeah, he had a pet cemetery, for all these injured animals he would find. And the veterinarian was like, I don't think that they were, injured when he found them. I think, this is a marker, not a camera, or a microphone. I think he was injuring them and bringing them to us to kill, to fill his cemetery. And the reader were like, yeah, duh. But for them, they were like, dun. Like, the evidence is just piling up, because this is after Father Silence gets captured. So, you know, they're interviewing people, you know, to get evidence, you know, for trial. And so we read that, and I'm like, well, that's not fucking creepy at all. Like, he would make little headstones for them and stuff, and I'm like, no one saw this coming? No one? Like, okay. Okay. And then so the next morning after the storm and stuff, Tess drops Julie off at school. Well, drops is a fucking loose term here. Tess drops her off at the corner, not in front of the school, because there's like this huge line. So Tess like, you okay dropping off here? And Julie's like, yeah, I can see my friend. I'll walk with those big kids right there. And Tess is like, okay. I'm like, okay. So Julie gets out the car. Tess sees her cross the street and join the kids that are going to the school, and then she drives off. So I'm like, I got a bad feeling about that, but okay. Alright. So Tess gets to work, and of course Justin's there because Justin gets called in as a consultant for cases and stuff because he's a psychiatrist, and he's trying to talk to her, and she's like, talk of the hand because the face ain't listening. You know, she's like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to speak to you. Like, you did what you did, and I'm still mad, and I don't care about your psychobabble bullshit. We don't need to talk about this right now. Go away, basically, is what she's talking about. And during that little kerfuffle where she's like, go away, go do your job, go work over there if you need to, leave me the fuck alone, she gets a call. She gets a call from this person. We're just going to put him right here. Calling himself the Outcast. Now, the Outcast, what is it with me in drawing these heads like G's? You know what? He could stay like that. He's the Outcast. So the Outcast calls her, and at first she thinks it's just some prank call because Father Silence was just executed. But he's like, I just killed a couple out in a cabin, and da-da-da-da-da. And he names the cabin in the city that her dad and her mom are at. And she's like, excuse you? And so she has, like, the local authorities in where the city that their cabin is in go, and yeah, he did. I don't even know how else. That's what I put in my notes. Says he killed her parents. He did. He brutally murdered her parents. And so they get there, and they're telling her, like, you don't want to go in there, my guy. I know you're a detective, and I know you do like that. I know, but you don't want to go in there. And she's like, fuck you, get out of the way, and goes in. And her parents were brutally murdered by the Outcast. I won't describe it because yeah, money. Someday eventually make monies off these. But so they were murdered, and the Outcast had drawn black circles over their eyes, and had put a pin up of the news reporting of Father Silence being executed in front of her dad's body. So they're like, oh, great, this is related to that. We love this. So they're already like, shit, well, that's not good. And then while they're there, the Outcast calls again, and they realize that well, no, the Outcast doesn't call yet, but they realize that they could be going after family members, and so all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, we gotta go get Julie. But they get to the school, and the teacher's like, yeah, we were gonna call you, Julie never showed up. And so now they're freaking out because Justin's like, didn't you drop her off this morning? And Tessa was like, well, yeah. And she's like, I dropped her off at the corner, she walked in with kids. And Justin's like, I always drop her off at the front of the school. And Tessa's in her head, like, going, yeah, because you're the perfect fucking parent. Yeah, M&M. But in her head, she's going, I saw her, right? I saw her join those kids. And now she's second guessing. But Julie is officially missing. She never got to the school. So from the corner to the school, which if you know anything about schools, and there's not that much distance there, but somehow from point A to point B, with not that much distance in between, Julie went missing. And so now it's like, what do we do? And so later, an anonymous, like, a tip comes in, and they're like, hey, we saw, like, they put Julie's picture, like, everywhere. The news, posters, the internet. Like, they're like, have you seen this girl? And someone calls in and says, hey, I saw someone who looks like that little girl. She was with this adult man and this little boy. And, like, they give the description, and they're able to put a composite sketch together of the Outcast. And they're like, but who the hell is this little boy? And they're like, no, like his description, there hasn't been anyone reported missing that matches that little boy's description. And like no one's come forth saying my son is missing or anything like that. They're like, who is this little boy? So now they're like, okay, now we know that this is a theme. This has something to do with Father Silence. This obviously has something to do with your dad arresting him. And so they call and warn dad's partner dude, like, hey, your partner was just murdered and it has something to do with Father Silence. Be on your tippy toes, because the guy is on the loose. We don't know where they are. Just be on guard is the best they can do. And they do warn the sheriffs in the town, because partner dude never left Twisted Tree. He stayed there until he retired and stayed there and stuff. So they let the cops there know, like, hey, we don't know what this is, but it has something to do with Father Silence and these detectives, so keep an eye on your guy. So they're at a point where they go back to her dad's murder scene, her dad and her mom, and she's looking around, and she does two things. One piss me off, and then another one where I'm like, okay, that was kind of smart. So the one thing she does that pissed me off is she goes to her dad, the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, and she finds a bottle of opioids. I think it's oxycodone, I think is what it is. And that's when we find out that Tess has, she's a recovering opioid addict. 1 year clean. And she decides that because of all the stress of this, because her parents were murdered and her daughter's missing, she's going to take that bottle of opioids with her. And I'm like, this isn't going to go well. Like, this isn't going to go well. Like, I'm immediately mad. I'm like, why? You're going to put yourself in a compromising position. It's going to cloud your judgment. Like, I'm already thinking ahead to the problems that are going to happen once she starts using again. So she sneaks her dad's bottle of opioids into her pocket, and then she keeps looking around, and she like opens up the curtains to the windows in her dad's room, and these black eyes are drawn on the window, and she's looking at it, and she kind of like maps like where the eyes would be looking if she was like, it's going that way. By the way, I feel like we should have the theme. These black eyes are the theme. So she's like, okay. And the eyes point right at her dad's closet. So she opens the closet, and on the bottom of the closet is her dad's briefcase, which was basically his laptop, because he doesn't like typing. He wrote everything down. And so the briefcase had everything he ever collected on the case during his investigation into Father Silence. So she's like, yep, that's coming with me. Because she said her dad clearly had something to tell her about Father Silence the night before on the phone, but they were going to wait till she got there to visit him today. But now, since he's, dead, and so she takes the briefcase and she shows them, and she shows him the eyes written on the window that point to the closet where the briefcase was. And so she opens it, and she sees like there's like little notes on paper, there's big case files. It's just anything that had anything to do with Father Silence in any way was put in this briefcase. And so she's going through it, and she finds the little note that was saying what her dad wanted to tell her yesterday, which was Father Silence broke his silence and said this one sentence, which was, beware the one who got away. She's like, what the fuck does that mean? So now they're thinking, okay, the one who got away, there was one survivor, and that survivor was Noah Nichols. So we're just going to put him right here for now. So we're going to put Noah right here for now. But, so they're like, okay, wow, he is really tiny in comparison. That's better. We'll put Noah right here. But so they're like, okay, but he was the only survivor. They're like, but he couldn't have done this. He's literally in an asylum for the criminally insane, and he's there for life. And so her detective partner, Danny, who's technically the lead on this, he's like, okay, well, I'll call and see if there was any, like, maybe he got out. I don't know. I'll call and I'll see. And like, he's investigating, and he's telling her like, you're technically not on this case. I'm going to let you know right now. you're technically not on it, but I'm not going to tell you that you can't be here and investigate and shit because it's your dad and I get it. So he's calling around and they're trying to figure out like what to do. Like at this point they have no other leads except that this person calls himself the Outcast, Father Silence's last words, and it somehow connects to Noah, and that her daughter is missing and the Outcast has it, but we don't know why. So and there's more mentioning that Tess can't remember that something happened in her past and that it more than likely has something to do with Father Silence and like all of this, because her memory gap is happening around the time that all of this happened. So she goes, so the Outcast calls Tess, and while she's still at the house, the murder scene with everybody, the Outcast calls Tess just to be like, did you find the briefcase? I left you a clue. And he's like stuttering and stuff. Sounds completely different than when he did when he called earlier, when he sounded so sure of himself and stuff. Now he's stuttering. He doesn't sound sure of himself. He's like, I left you a clue. Did you see it? I left you the clue. And she's like, I saw it. Where's my daughter? Blah, blah, blah. And he talks. She gets to talk to Julie for like 0.5 seconds. And Julie doesn't sound scared at all. She's like, we're going to the playhouse, Mom. And Tess is like, what? So, and that's all she gets before the Outcast hangs up the phone. But she's like, what the fuck? So at this point, Justin freaks out. The dad freaks out. And he leaves. He storms off. They're like, where the fuck is he going? And Tess is like, where the fuck is he going? And so Danny's like, let me drive you home. You don't seem like you're in any right mind to be driving home right now. So he takes her home and his wife is there. Let's put her down here. His wife is there to kind of just be with her, because they're all besties. Remember, Danny, his wife, Tess, and Justin are all besties. And she sits with her and just hangs out with her to make sure that she's okay. She's not. She secretly pops a freaking oxy while her friend is there to help her get into the mindset to go over the case files. I'm like, your reasoning is stupid as shit, but whatever. So they're just sitting there. Hold on. I forgot wife's name. It's one of the things I didn't write down again. Eliza. So her and Eliza, Eliza's just being there. Eliza's just being a good friend, being there, being a body to be there with her. And they're just, she's trying to make sense of this. She's like, I don't understand why this would happen. Why take Julia? Because even Father Silence, when he took kids, he took like the literal outcasts of society. He took homeless kids. He took kids in abusive households, drug addicts. He didn't take kids that were in happy households or good households, things like that. So they don't understand why the Outcast is breaking the pattern and taking someone like Julie. So what ends up happening is they hear that partner dude got murdered. So partner dude gets murdered, and they're like, there's no way, even if he got on a plane, which highly unlikely he did, because we put his picture and Julie's picture up everywhere. There's no way that he got all the way back to Twisted Tree that fucking fast and killed this dude. So now they're like, shit, is there more than one person? Are there multiple killers? And that fucking stresses them out, because they're like, more than one person calling themselves the Outcast and doing stuff. Basically, it sounds, now they're like, okay, is there someone out there avenging Father Silence's execution, like avenging his death? So now they're making a list in their head of like, all right, who was all involved with the case? There were the detectives, witnesses, there was a priest that testified against Father Silence. He is now on protective watch. They've got people watching him 24/7. they're like, shit, there's a whole list of people that we need to check on. Like, what? Because now they're like, this is a revenge killing. But still, they're like, but why take Julie and that little boy? Like, that's the one thing they can't figure out is, but why take her? And what is the playhouse? And why are they... What is the playhouse? Where's the playhouse? And so they go to... So Tess decides that she's going to Twisted Tree. So Danny was already going there to help with the investigation because the feds are getting involved in everything too now. Danny was already going, and he tells Tess, their boss, their chief, was like, she can't go. And Tess was like, I'm not going for the investigation. I need a vacation. I need a little break from all this. And Justin's like, yeah, me too. I need a little break. Because this has all just been really stressful. So we're just going on a little vacation back to Tess's hometown, you know, a little trip down memory lane. And Danny's like, fuck the both of you, that's bullshit. But they go anyway, despite Tess's boss, the chief, calling her while she's walking through the airport. He's like, don't do this. And she's like, fuck you. And so she goes anyway. Like, of course they're gonna go because they're trying to figure out where the fuck their daughter is. And the cops there of Twisted Tree, they're like, we knew your dad, we knew Detective John, we'll let you help, but if any way it seems like your feelings are starting to compromise this investigation, you're out, you're done. And Tess is like, fair, whatever. And I feel like she's gonna fuck something up because she's still popping the pills. She brought the pills with her. She's gonna fuck something up. It's bound to happen. Plus her memory gap shit. Yeah, she's gonna fuck something up. And so we get another little snippet about the character that lives in Father Silence's house. She was warning the cops. And apparently she's been warning them. She's like, guys, if Father Silence gets executed, bad shit's gonna happen. And she's been warning them forever, and they're just like, whatever, bitch. They think she's crazy because she made a mistake of telling them the reason why she knows all this bad shit's gonna happen is because the house is talking to her. Let me tell you again. The house is talking to her. And she's still there. In the house that's talking to her. Yeah. So I wouldn't believe her either. I read that and I was like, okay. Yay. But so we get a little snippet of that. So we're gonna end up meeting her again because they're gonna end up going back to Father Silence's house. There's no way around it, especially when I talk about this little scene that's going to be happening here shortly. They're gonna end up there. So they're back in Twisted Tree now where Tess grew up, and it's called Twisted Tree because of these two trees that grew and like twisted up into each other. That's why the town's called Twisted Tree. But they're there now, and they go to the crime scene of John Dude. They go to his house to see how he was murdered, and they're looking around. They see another posting of like a news article about Father Silence and all of that. And they're like, yeah, we already knew that was going to be there. And Tess gets a call. Well, the Outcast calls Partner Dude's landline, and the cop answers, but he wants to speak to Tess. So Tess gets on the phone. And he's like, did you find my clue? Did you find my clue? I left you a clue for you to find something. And Tess is like, oh, okay. And he's like, how about this? I'll give you 2 minutes to find it or something happens to Julie. And now she's like, son of a bitch. So they're all scrambling through the house looking for the clue. And they find it in the detective's bedroom behind the mirror, behind a dresser with a mirror on it. And she thinks the mirror is looking at a Medal of Honor that the detective got while he was in the war. And so she's like, I found your clue. Let me talk to my daughter. So she hears Julie on the phone again. And again, Julie doesn't sound scared at all. She's like, we're going to the playhouse, mommy. Ba-da-da-da-da. And she's starting to sound a little unsure when her dad gets on the phone. He's like, baby's going to be okay. We're going to find you. Everything's going to be okay. And that's when she starts to sound a little unsure about what's happening. But then the Outcast takes the phone and hangs up. And so now they're like, we need to get our daughter back. And we need to figure out what the fuck is going on here. And so Danny tells them, hey, go talk to Noah Nichols. He's at the thing for the criminally insane. The director is waiting for you. He's expecting you. Go talk to Noah, see what you can find out. So they know now there is no way Noah could be the outcast out there killing people, because he's been in this asylum for the criminally insane this entire time. So he's not one of the two killers. So he's not one of the two killers. There's no way. So they go to talk to Noah, and Noah's fucking crazy. Let's just put it that way. Noah is there for a reason. So he's in there because at the ripe age of like 11 or something, very young little boy age, he kills his father. He doesn't remember killing his father, but his mom saw it and the neighbor saw it. There's an interview with the neighbor describing what she saw when she heard his mom screaming outside. And she went over to see because she thought it was their dad, his dad, like beating on his mom again, because his dad was very abusive to both Noah and his mom. And she goes over and she sees Noah straddling his dad, and his dad is dead, and he's like going at it, killing him, and he carved the word outcast into his dad's chest. And then she said it looked like Noah like kind of shook his head and looked around like he was confused about like where he was and stuff. And that's how that interview ends. But so they're talking to Noah and they're trying to ask him questions about while he was with Father Silence with the other boys in the basement of his house. And they're asking him about his imaginary friends that he had growing up. And he keeps saying, I'm not supposed to talk about them, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's just like, I don't want to talk about them. And all of a sudden, Noah's like voice and posture changes and stuff. And this little boy comes on who says his name is Tom. And Tom starts talking. And Tom is like, we don't talk about Oscar, or I think it's Amelia is her name. Like, we don't talk about them. And he's like, and Justin is taking over because he's a psychiatrist and he's picking up on what's going on with Noah. And he's like, oh, but are they there? And Tom is like, yeah, they're there. But he's like, not willing to give them information. Like, it's if something bad will happen to him if he gives information about it. So he's like, oh, there's Steven, and he's like listing off names, like, we're all here, da da da, so and so and so and so and so and so, and Tessa's like, what the fuck? But Justin's like, oh, okay, that's, yeah, like, he's going along with it because, you know, it's his job, he's used to this. And then all of a sudden Noah switches up and puts on a pair of glasses, and that's when the guard that's with him and the director, they go, get back, but it's too late. He like lunges at them and he's like choking out the director, and he's talking in this voice that sounds so familiar to Tess because it sounds like the outcast that called her on the phone, and the outcast is saying all this shit to her that the outcast from out there was saying. Like, he knows about Julie, he knows about the shit from the murder scenes, like he knows about things that he shouldn't know about because he's been in the asylum this whole time and has never once left the asylum. So they're like, what the fuck? And so they finally subdue him. And while this is happening, Tess has one of her little mini memory meltdowns where all of a sudden she's having flashbacks to her past. So she remembers 20 years ago when her dad and his partner went to go arrest Father Silence. She was actually there. She was in her dad's car. Like, she had snuck into his car and was there when they were going to arrest him. But she snuck out of the car because obviously she can't be in her dad's fucking cop car while he's arresting the criminal, because then, you know, gotta go in the fucking cop car. So she remembers that she was there 20 years ago, and that's all she remembers. There was a scene earlier where the cops are talking about this fucking weird-ass cult. They're called the Lost Children. So there's this cult called the Lost Children, and they follow Father Silence. They they admire him, and they were like, he was taking in all the unwanted children of the world. That's the only thing they looked at for everything that he did. They were like, he took in all the unwanteds. We are the unwanted. We are the lost children. They are, I don't even want to get, let's just say they're a cult. And so there was a scene where they're talking about how they were wearing masks, and that sparked a memory for her. A scene of her with someone who was wearing a mask. And she's like, why am I remembering this shit now? And so she's like, why am I remembering these things now after Father Silence was executed and all this is happening? Now she's having these memories coming back slowly but surely. And it's suspicious to her. It's weird to her. So that's another thing that happens. And so while this is happening, back to, we'll just say priest. Witness priest. So witness priest is under 24/7 watch. Okay, so we have the point of view of one of the cops that are watching them. It's 2 cops. They rotate every like 7 hours or something. So this dude's house is under watch because he was involved in the Father Silence case. He could be one of the victims. So he's watching, and he's really annoyed with his partner because he's like, the dude's just weird. It's just strange. So it's a couple hours into their shift, and like, he's in front of the house, his partner is out in the back, and he hears something weird. So he's like trying to radio his partner, and he's like, dude, hello? His partner's not responding. So he goes to check because can't have bad shit happening. So he goes to check, and his partner has a fucking sheep mask on. Like, he's like, dude, quit fucking around. But his partner starts, like, baaing like a sheep. Like, making the sheep noises. And he's like, what the fuck is going on? And he had already suspected maybe his partner might be on drugs or something, because he was super, like, jittery and, like, wouldn't stop moving and, like, fucking with his clothing and stuff. So now he's like, drugs, I knew it. Fucking drugs. But then his partner pulls out a knife, and now he's like, what the fuck? And so that's where it ends, with him pulling out a knife. And then that part ends. They cut back to Tess and Justin with Noah, and the director is explaining, like, yeah, Noah has DID. We've established this many personalities. The Outcast is the most confusing one, and da-da-da-da-da. They go into a bunch of, like, talk with Justin and the director about this stuff, and, like, how they're trying to figure out how Noah himself says he doesn't remember killing his father, but he won't talk about the 2 best friends he had, or imaginary friends he had growing up, who he thinks are the ones that may have killed his father. It's a whole thing. And they're like, Tess is like, I need to go outside. I need to take a step outside because shit's happening. And she's like, what the fuck? So she goes outside, and she's like taking a breather and stuff, and then this dude in a horse mask shows up, and a dude in a sheep mask shows up. Both of them have weapons, and they're both making sounds, like animal sounds pertaining to the mask they're wearing. And Tessa's like, I got a gun. That's the first thing, is I got a gun. And the dude with the horse mask gets on all fours and is like making horse sounds while coming towards her. And she's like, my guy, I will shoot you in the leg if you keep coming towards me. And dude keeps coming towards her. So she shoots him in the leg. And then the guy in the sheep mask, he starts coming towards her, but then Justin comes outside. They hear the gunshots, and they come outside like, what the absolute fuck? And Justin sees the guy in the sheep mask, and he chases after him. While Tess is going, that's not a good idea, you have no weapon. But she chases after him anyway. And while this is happening, Danny calls and is like, yo, the priest is missing. And she's like, what the fuck? She goes, yeah, partner, the cop, one of them was attacked. He survived. before he got carted off to the hospital, he said his partner put on a fucking sheet mask and attacked him. And she's like, sheet mask? Yo, you need to get cops here now, because the dude with the sheet mask and the dude with the horse mask just showed up, and Justin just chased sheet mask dude off into the woods. And so now cops are going to be on the way coming to them. And she goes over to dude in the horse mask, who went from screaming in pain to laughing maniacally. And while she was distracted on the phone, he slit his wrists so that they couldn't question him about any of the lost children stuff going on. And he died. And Danny on the phone, the chapter ends with Danny going, I've been thinking, there's one thing we didn't consider this being about, like all of this stuff. One thing that it's been revolving around. She goes, what? And he goes, you, Tess. I think the shit has to do with you. And then that's where I stopped reading. That's where I ended for the first half of the book. And I'm in my head like, yep, this shit all has something to do with something she did. Something she did, that her parents tried to protect her from by moving out of the town. This is my suspicion. Okay. So the article that was mentioned at the beginning of the book about the 2 bodies that were found in Twisted Tree with their heads like bashed in, I don't think Father Silence had anything to do with those 2 bodies. I think Tess had something to do with those 2 bodies. And I think that's why her parents moved her out of town, because she had something to do with it. Not, maybe she didn't kill them directly, but she had something to do with those 2 boys dying. And I think she also knew something about Father Silence, because she had several moments where she remembered being in his house, sitting at his table. And so, for some reason, she's been to see Father Silence, and her parents moved out of town with her after all this happened, for some reason that she can't remember, and that they never actually told her the real reason why. So I know for a fact that Tess is tied to Father Silence for some freaking reason, and she did something. She did something in the past that was so bad that her parents had to up and move from Twisted Tree to keep her safe. I want to know what it was. I bet she either indirectly killed the 2 boys that were found, or she did kill the 2 boys that were found. I'm ready to find out. If Julie dies in this book, I'm gonna be pissed. I don't think this little girl is gonna die. The vibe that I'm getting from the Outcast, that he doesn't want to hurt the children. He really thinks the place that he's taking them to is like really good for them. He really thinks he's saving them and keeping them safe. I don't think she's gonna die at the end. I do expect at least 2 more people to die. I'm not sure who yet, but I'm pretty sure at least Justin. Yeah. It's either going to be Justin or Danny. At least one of them are going to die. That for sure. And probably the Outcast. That's just my guess. But, that was the first half of Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. It's very fast-paced. It literally jumps to like 100 almost immediately. So, both of his books that I read before were like that too, where you just kind of literally jump right into it, which I don't mind just because of the way he writes it. You really get a good feel for the characters and things like that. So I don't mind the fast pace because of the writing style and the characterization and stuff. So if that's your thing, and if you like horror and mystery, things like that, I would recommend Sleep Tight. I will read the second half probably in 2 weeks. I'll post the review for that. I am reading another book that I'll post a review for next week. And then probably get back to this one. But I'm also starting another one. So I'll post a schedule. We'll see about it. That's what I have for now. Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. Bye-bye.